So I'm gonna start by greeting you. Greetings, Tessa. How are you doing? How's Kampala?
Hi, Zippo. I'm all right. Kampala is okay, I guess. I don't know. It's been, weird times. So the weird times continue in their own way, I suppose. But yeah, we're around. We're all right. How are you?
I'm pretty well, I guess, under the circumstances.
Exactly.
Yeah, the pandemic had turned things upside down for a lot of us.
Yeah.
It's been quite a great loss,
Mm-hmm.
and we still continue to lose.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are probably some people who imagine that September 2021 would look like this, but I don't know. I don't know if a lot of us did, at the start of this thing. Didn't really imagine ourselves quite being where we are, but we persevere, I guess, right? So yeah.
I also didn't have an idea that we'd still be talking about this, in a present sense.
Right? Very present sense, yeah.
So me, currently, I'm chatting to you from Dantsane, which is a suburb just outside of East London.
Okay.
The East London that is in the southeast of South Africa, and not the East London that's over there. So originally, this area used to be a small farming area back then. But you also know how the story goes, it became a reserve for natives at some point, under the apartheid administration. And so the current people that inhabit it are people who were forcibly removed from what is known as the East Bank in East London, in the city. So the entire suburb, this area has about 154,000 and something people. So let's just say about 155,000, right?
Wow.
Just for the sake of moving on to the next line. And here there are absolutely no art centers. Actually, I'm lying. No, let me not lie. There's one very under-resourced center. One under-resourced center. Population of 155, more or less, 1,000 people. Right? And this art center is located right at the entrance of the suburb of Ugandan, right? And this is not uncommon here in South Africa. This nice big international, this place with big international achievers, who've achieved greatness locally, and international artists, grandmasters with grand galleries and museums. But it's not unpopular to have still be having places that are as under-resourced as this place where I am right now, right? And so I just wanted to start there, just to tell you where I am, and I also wanted to find out from you if you could tell me a little bit about the importance for you of having invested in having a physical cultural space.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so connected to that in terms of having resources. And I think the importance and power of having physical infrastructure is that it's not going anywhere for a long time unless there's a lot of intention to make it, kind of disappear. And I think particularly as well for it to be a space, a structure that is designed specifically to be an art center also says something very clear, right? That this is worth investing in and valuing, and, as much as society might deem it, unnecessary or unimportant, enough people have thought this is important and we're going to invest our time and resources to making this structure happen that is centered around artists and their work and their community, because we value them, right? And so I think that's really a powerful message, and I think not just for our audiences and for people who maybe are familiar with art, but it's also for people who walk past the building and are like, wait, what's that? Like, what is this beautiful space? What, it's for art? What? I never knew that was, important enough to be deserving of these resources. I think it's like a way of kind of switching a narrative or like idea or concept that a lot of us growing up maybe had about art. And then I think for the artists as well, they've even said like how important it will feel for them to know that people will see the space and feel like, oh wow, okay, now I'm gonna take you guys seriously. Like, this is legit. And that's something I hadn't thought of, but a few artists had expressed that, you know what, like, this is actually really going to affect how people see our work and what we do. So yeah, I think there are a few different reasons, but yeah, those are some big ones.
It's nice that you touch on that, because I was wondering about like your thoughts in the structure that you're currently like building, what were your thoughts about the architecture of the place? How did you want it to be? Did you have a vision? Did you consult people? Were you looking at, like a factor of climate or whatever, because
Sure.
when you're thinking about a structure that will be permanent, you're thinking about like a home, a place that will house different people. What did you want to say about where you are, like locally? Did you think about that? I mean, but I hear now that you've had so many thoughts and you had other inputs from artists who were who seem to be interested in making the space look presentable. Were they looking at presentable in a like international way, or in a way in which you could just stand out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't in a way of like, I think it's really just, again, about going back to saying, this is important, this has value, this has worth, this should make you look twice. It should make you stop and think. It shouldn't be something you just kind of, pass by and don't take notice of. Not in a way of saying like, please take us seriously, or please, we want to impress you, but just like, we are impressive, like just by, like, this is a representation of who we are. This is a physical manifestation of the amazing things that have been happening culturally in our country for years and years, even though they haven't been recognized and been given the kinds of resources that they are deserving of. So I think, yeah, like, it was, really a way of kind of trying to stamp that. But honestly, like, looking back as well, I'm kind of glad I didn't realize how big this was going to be, because I think I'd have been too intimidated to take it on. Like, it's grown in so many ways from the initial concept, just because of, getting to know more about what artists wanted, what artists were looking for, what they found they were lacking in the arts ecosystem. It's come out of a lot of conversations with our architects who are based in London, and then we've also got architects based in Uganda. Come out of conversation of learning. So the architects we work with in London really focus a lot on sustainable infrastructure, and like really thinking about the impact, the environmental impact that architecture has, and like what buildings can do to also highlight different ways of making and building that aren't harmful to our planet. And, from that, just also realizing the opportunity that a building can bring into that messaging. For me, getting more comfortable with the organization and my position, and also what I want to see. The rest of the team, getting to know also, like, through Triangle Network, for example, and other networks we're in, like how other organizations operate and what it is that their spaces look like and how their spaces reflect their communities. So it's really changed a lot. And again, like, really, like, if 5 years ago you were to tell me that that this is what I'd be doing, I'd be like, I don't know about that, maybe get someone else.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, well done, man.
Thank you. It's a journey.
Yeah. So we both, you and I, we come from corners, or I can say a corner of the world, that wasn't visited by people whose mission was to strip us of ways and, a sense of self for their own benefit, right? From like the 15th century, this mission continues today. Although a lot of people would want to deny it, but the situations on the ground can attest to it.
Right.
For an example, going back to where I am, there are currently about 70 churches in this suburb alone. We spoke about that one arts center, right?
Yes.
Something close to, if not over 70 churches in this one area alone, right? And when I'm talking about, I haven't even started to speak about the actual city itself and the other surrounding areas that are around the city, right? So this art center that I spoke to you earlier about, it houses music, it houses visual arts, it houses dance, theater, and whatever else you can just throw in there and call art. It houses
multi-purpose,
gumboots, dance, whatever. It houses,
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know, like, just speaking to you, and I just want to know from you what it means to reclaim or rethink like this history, right? Like from like an institutional point of view, because I mean, what we have as something as a testimony as the church, these are the institutions that after being stripped we were left with, and I mean, we haven't managed to build things that will be there to serve us alone. So I'm just like wondering from your point, what is it, to reclaim and like rethink this from an institutional point of view?
That is a good question. And I'm not sure one I have the answer to, but in some ways, like, I think there are things about, like, if you were to kind of imagine your ideal church without the like baggage, right? Because there is a lot of baggage, right? But if you think about things like fellowship, right? Like meeting up with people from all walks of life, from different ages, different races, like literally like humans in a space that come together around one intention. So like removing the religion out of it, right? But like a gathering space, community, fellowship, a place where safe disagreements can be had as well, like differences of opinion, a place where critical thinking also is embraced and people's questions are welcomed. All of those things, like, I think in some ways that is a space, that is the place for a cultural institution, ideally, right? Like a lot of these things that are put in churches, cultural institutions or community spaces can be church for a lot of people who are often like the outcasts, not really understood, seen as really weird, seen as other for whatever reason. And it's a space where you come as you are, and your differences are met with interest and curiosity. It's like, well, why do you think that? That's super interesting. Like, I'm so like curious that you had this experience. Let's talk about it. Not like, who are you to be who you are? And you shouldn't be who you are. I think that is, in a way, not necessarily like reclaiming, but trying to make a new space, right? Like, I think a lot of people often are drawn to churches because they feel, again, like removing religion, but feel a lack of community, want to be seen, want to feel valued. And I think sometimes, often when we talk about contemporary arts, and particularly why I appreciate what I do, so it's not grounded in a commercial perspective for the most part. I mean, we need to make money to like keep working or whatever. But I think there's so much power in that, like in creating a space that is not marked by this baggage, where people can come and feel like, I found my people. And maybe I don't get along with all of them, but I still know I can always come here and like experiment, try new things, explore different avenues, like have my own path. And I have the safety and the resources and the tools and the networks community to be able to do that. Yeah, so those are things I think I think about often, and have realized, like, just in the years of working here, that power, like I hadn't fully comprehended what a space can mean for people in that sense, beyond just like, oh, you know, come and like there's studios, come, there's a library, come, there's these spaces, but it's actually like, come and feel okay. And feel okay to not be okay as well, without saying like this is explicitly like, yes, you know, this is what we're doing and we're coming and, you know, like meet with the priest or anything like that, right? Like it's a space, but you can also make it what you want. So that was a long answer, but it was a very big question, so that was my attempt to answer it.
Cool. Thanks, Tessa. So when I met you, I think you were in your first year as a director.
I was,
I first met you in 2016 when I was involved in organizing this 5-day assembly, which involved some triangle network partners and some associates. At the time, I was curating programs at Great Mo Studios, and you were there to represent 32 Degrees, the director, right? A position you hold today. Do you remember that conference? What do you remember most about it? If I may ask.
I mean, first of all, we were like in one of the most gorgeous places ever. Like, my God, like what? We were on a wine estate. Just stunning place, Boshendal. So I even remember that. Yeah, I mean, I think I was, you know, still new, so kind of overwhelmed a little bit, but happy to get to meet other people who had been doing this work for a really long time and were open to sharing their experiences. Yeah, it was just like, there's so many people here from different parts of the world, mainly from Africa, that can like talk to all these different experiences of like, you know, being a part of Triangle, having their either, again, like some places are more workshop based, some places are more studios, some places are more a mix of those two things. But again, like you get to hear from these different perspectives. There were some people who like were ready to retire and did years, like, you know, maybe even months after. And then other people who are a bit newer. So again, like even just to get to talk to them about those experiences, and everyone being very open to talk about, the ups and downs and highs and lows without this like, we need to present the best face. What was your experience of it? How did you feel about it?
I'm one of those people who retired myself. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. For me, the experience brought so many things, you know. It made me think about my place in the institution. It just made me question some things, you know, was I bringing my full self to the party, you know, or if I was being assimilated into it. It made me wonder if the institution was indeed like open to my own vision of, you know, what it is to be like a young post-colonial institution. And I was also very inspired by the work that was presented at the conference, because each day we had different presentations by people who were representing the different institutions, from Triangle in France to Guestworks, and you know, so, and I was very inspired by also mainly by the other independent run spaces, you know, like Pelele Station and you know, were both from them. And both were doing work at the time they were doing the work from their own pockets, you know, which meant that they were doing work at their own pace, without any pressure from outside. Because sometimes when you are working within an institution, you have deadlines, you have all this pressure in order to meet the certain deadlines, and also to find money, and it can be very stressful. And not that other work is not stressful, or these people are not, you know, under enormous pressure, but it's you know, they are able to slow down, they're able to like be more creative in their little endeavors, you know, because there are no expectations other than from, you know, from themselves. You know, they have to fulfill this their own mission, you know. So I was very much inspired by that. And I already had been thinking about, because I also come from a background of having worked with groups and whatnot, and I had never seen myself as a person who would probably create my own institution. Yes, it was very inspiring, but I also found that there's so much pressure to maintaining institutions. And so I've always thought, what is the alternative to all of this? I don't want to be working or to create an institution and be worried about the status in which I am. And when Dana presented, and she was talking about how, you know, I mean, she was different from Village Uno, because the artists who would put their money, the money that they make from selling artwork, into the business. But her work is not really about selling any object, you know. So, you know, part of her presenting was, and she spoke a bit about how she tries to generate money for the space, and how she uses her home as a business, because there are people, I think at that time, if I remember correctly, there was a guy who was renting the space who was a mechanic, right? And so he had a small space on the side, a garage, you know. So I mean, it started making me think again about what are other ways of generating money. And I'm not talking about like lots of money, or, you know, to be able to like to sustain yourself, but also like all these things slowly without all this other pressure. And it also inspired me to actually start thinking more with my colleagues that I work with at Breaking Bread about establishing this space. And when we did, we sort of like took that model of having the physical space and generating money for projects and programs from, you know, selling things. And even at that time we ran an illegal shipping. so it was, you know, it was really inspiring to be in the presence of people who are also thinking, you know, differently, you know, not that the other way is not correct, or, you know, it has been done for a very long time. And also for myself, being in an institution, a non-governmental institution, I felt that pressure of asking for money, of having things today, not having them tomorrow, of all these expectations of people thinking that you are so well funded, because things are running smooth, you know. But, you know, the reality was quite different. So it was a very interesting week for me. I must say.
I love how much you remember of it too. Like now as you're talking, more things come back. But I love how it was impactful in that way, even to today.
Yeah. It was one of those like very important things, because people would do the presentations, but then at the same time you could have conversations outside, you know, in the evenings, in the day, you know, you get inspired also at the same time, you know. I mean, when I was, you know, looking at what Guestworks does, and at that time I think they already renovated the buildings, and they oh my God, you know, people are progressing, and that's what's needed. You know?
Exactly. Like this is possible.
It's possible. It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
See,
Mm-hmm.
it's what you're doing now 5 years later. You know,
right?
It's possible. You don't have to be stuck in the same place that you were. You know, there's still more artists that need assistance. There's still more work that needs to be done. So, you know, and which is why I also wanted to ask this question that we had a chat a little bit earlier about it, about, you know, like this commitment into, because there are quite a lot of like different things that are happening. We also have like a lot of other experiences that are not so positive in like work environment. I was thinking about, like, you know, with you, like how you're aggressive in your commitment of confronting some of these issues, you know, that intersect with, you know, gender, capitalism, you know, in order for you to like to build an institution that is going to be like a positive institution to serve everybody.
Yeah, again, big question. Yeah, I mean, like, given that aggressive, right? Like, I wonder, I don't know how aggressive we are. Like, I think there's probably always more that can be done. And you're also constantly trying to sort of evaluate what I don't know, it's always about making certain choices, right? And trying to evaluate what kinds of choices make sense at which time. Because often, so for example, when you are operating in a context where there is very minimal infrastructure for the arts and maybe not so much of an appreciation broadly for what you do, and then you're fundraising, people will just be like, yeah, I mean, go where the money is. Like, you need money, right? Like, why are you being picky? Like, there's that kind of thing of, if you need money, you should just go where it is and, you know, like, make it work for whatever it is you want to do. Which, on one side, there's the thing of, like, I genuinely understand this thing of, a lot of money is, what money is like good, clean money, right? A lot of money is not, it's pretty dirty, you know? And so it's like, okay, it's what you want to do with it that then maybe that's where you get to make that choice and get to make that impact. On the other hand, there's also, like, if you have certain values and are saying you want to do certain things in the world and like stand for certain things, then you also still get to say, you know what, like, I'm actually not sure that we want to work with this company or this funder, because as much as all money might be dirty money, this money is dirty in a way that I'm not ready to clean, you know, like it's maybe gone beyond a certain level that I'm comfortable with. Or sometimes what happens too is there are certain demands that come with money as well, in that, you know, like a partner might say, if we fund this program, we expect this to come out of it, and we expect this level of branding, and we expect, you know, you to work with artists in this way. And again, like, I think if it goes contrary to how you usually operate, and again, like your values and your mission, then was it actually worth it? So I think in part, it really is about just trying to make those choices as much as possible that feel like they're aligned to our values. And then also trying to be creative as well about how we think about where we have power. Like, in the areas that we have power, how can we use that power differently to what we've experienced? So if we don't, like, as an organization, when we're always being asked to, like, you know, provide exact proof of exactly how you funded, like all of these tiny little things, and we aren't, you know, we're in a relationship with a funder where there's no flexibility allowed to, and you can't like adjust things based off of circumstance, if we don't like that, why would we then make that our relationship with an artist, right? Where we're like, you need to give us all the receipts, you need to, give us everything by this deadline and report to us with these guidelines. Can we change that relationship, right? Like, can we have new kind of models of dealing with money, of thinking about power, of, thinking about equity as well? In our relationship with the artists, is there a way that we can engage them more in the decision-making process so they also feel like they have more power and more say over how the organization runs? So I guess like those are the questions around like maybe more capital. And then, yeah, like I think, you had asked about sexism as well, right? Like, I think that's something we definitely deal with. In part, I mean, again, like questioning this aggressive, like how much am I like confronting that versus, I think just being present is a way of confronting that, right? Like that when people look at the organization and see who runs it, like majority of the team are, are women, young as well. Hopefully our work speaks for us as well, and our community also can vouch for what we're doing. And so by that too, it's like, if you're sexist, then you're stupid. Like, like we're doing things, like, you can talk all you want, but the reality is that we're making things happen. And so am I going to waste my time trying to argue with you about my worth? Or am I gonna be actually like doing things and making things happen for the things I care about? Like, where am I putting my energy? Like, let me follow where the energy is. Like, let me follow the things that charge me and, charge the people that I love to work with, as opposed to like constantly being like, let me show you, let me prove. Why do you matter? Right? Like, what are you doing for us here? Did that answer your question?
Follow where the energy resides.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. I was wondering also, do you have like examples there in UG, like of, like independent institutions which are not necessarily, like, I'm just trying to find inspiration, necessarily financed by corporate forces or liberal government? Like, are there examples that you have of people who've managed to,
almost everyone who's doing work in the art space in Uganda is that. Like, we don't have government funding at all. Like, I think you all have the National Arts Council, right? Or something along those lines. I mean, maybe it's not super effective, but it's a thing that exists.
Yes, it exists.
Yeah. We don't have that. There's not really much like corporate social responsibility around the arts. Like right now, they may be more focused on like health and education. So there's not really much of a like established culture around that. So yeah, in terms of like corporate support, you won't really find that. So yeah, I mean, almost every space, like there's the Zenson art space that's funded by an artist called Zenson, out of his own money. There's the Jabulani Art Center, which is in Fort Portal in Uganda, in Western Uganda, that they like basically fund their activities from different events and also fund, grant funding. They're like, non-profit, independent. There used to be more. Unfortunately, they've kind of died out as well, because it's also really difficult when funding sources are so few. And there were some spaces that were run by artists, and again, like just having sustainable income made it really difficult. And sometimes it's like, again, like a reason why we also decided to buy a plot and try build is that there were some art spaces that got kicked out by their landlords, or like the rent was increased to a point where they couldn't afford to have the space anymore. And which is, just I think speaks to how difficult it is for art spaces to continue and have longevity. But there were artists out there like trying to make it happen. So Yeah, I'm sure I've missed some.
Yeah,
But
I think, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely in support of all these curators and artists that are setting up their own independent run spaces, you know, that are running for their own pockets, you know. And then some are doing it not because they've got disposable income, but it's because they're needed, and
exactly.
we don't need saviors.
Yeah, sorry, underground Kampala as well, before underground Kampala, and then also in Jabala, which is new. So I'm not fully sure like what the plans are, but yes, they just when you were saying that, I was like, yes, those are examples of that.
Because there's a trend with funding, you know, there's it always starts and it ends exactly the same way everywhere in the continent. It's like if you are coming from a difficult place, you know, historically, and then there will be all this money popping up, you know, to set up the country or reset the country, and then it disappears. So I think it's time that we also realize that we don't need saviors. If we're not going to do it ourselves, it won't be done.
But also, yeah, to acknowledge that, sorry, I'm like, let me put the light on. Just to acknowledge as well that it's really hard work, you know, like that's also not super sustainable if you're also relying on like individuals' energy and individuals' resources to constantly be the ones doing these things. Like we also really do need this larger, like we need to advocate and like push for respect and value, right? Like for structures that do have funding, do have resources, for them to actually like put them in these different institutions and organizations and collectives, all of these things, because, you know, like they deserve to have those resources and to have longevity again, so that, you know, a few years down the line, if you are burnt out, you know what's going to happen to the thing. So I think that's part of our job as well, right? Like if you are in a space where you do have someone's ear and like they might not fully, you know, pay attention to everything that you're saying, but if you are like, if you are in a space where like there's a minister of culture or for whatever, or, you know, certain decision makers, these things need to be mentioned so that they know that, again, like it's important, it should be happening more. Infrastructure, funding, all these things. They can't be, because like, again, like so much of the work we do, well, yeah, like ideally, like makes a difference to people's lives. It's transformative in some kind of way, whether or not it's like right now and completely recognizable and completely measurable, or years down the line where it's like, you know, this one person who went to this exhibition years ago, all of a sudden, like, not all of a sudden, but like, you know, thinks about, let's say, immigration differently, is not a xenophobe. Like all of these things, right? Like these are the kinds of impacts that art can have. And we are making societies better, stronger, more cohesive, all of these things. And those are things that governments should be doing, ideally, right? If they actually wanted to govern and cared about their people, all of these things. And if we're like running ourselves ragged, doing all of this work all the time, and we burn out and it doesn't happen, then years down the line, our societies are poorer for it. And so if you are thinking about investment and all of these things, that's the kind of work you should be doing. You should be funding these kinds of organizations. It's not just because we're asking for it. We make things better, ideally. And so I think that's something that I think about a lot, like how we've kind of been, societies, how, you know, made us feel like we should be grateful for funding, you know, like we should, like I think particularly being in Africa, right? Like, oh man, you know what you do, you know, here's a little something, but keep up the good work. But it's actually like, no, we do something that's really important and you get to benefit from it too. It's not just a fun thing. It's not just a small thing that, you know, it's like cute. It's like, this is actually hopefully making things better. I went on a tangent, but yeah.
No, you're right on time. So when are you guys opening up your doors? Can you spell?
Good
Are you
question.
having what do we call it? Housewarming.
Ribbon cutting ceremony.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna turn the light on, sorry. Very good question. Pandemic has kind of impacted a lot of that. So originally, we were supposed to have started construction in around March or April of this year. And then we had a lockdown here in Uganda. And so all of our planning permissions just sat on the city authority's desk for like months and months. So we're only starting construction fully this month. And for the first phase of construction, it's 12 months until the first phase is built. If we are really successful with the rest of fundraising over the next year, then we'll just continue to build the rest of the project, which will then take an additional about 15 months. Otherwise, but I think still, like, even after building phase one, we'll still do something just to commemorate and recognize.
I know that's enough time for us to save, babes, to come to the
exactly, right? That's the thing, right? Like, at that point you'll be like, Uganda, no problem. Like, I've, saved up. Yes, so get that saving account ready. But yeah, hopefully this time next year, phase one will be done and we'll do something special. And then maybe 2.5 years. So wow, yeah, then we'll finally be done. But again, it will depend on fundraising.
Time goes by so quickly.
It does. That's very true. That's very true. What is time? What is time?
What is time? Yeah, we're still babies,
Right.
Relevant.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. I think on my part, I am very happy to have had this chat with you.
Thanks.
I think we should have another chat at some point.
I'm here. Yes. Yes.
Are you fine? Are you cool?
Yeah, I think it was. I hope you. Yeah, I'm glad to hear you're happy because I feel like I, went down paths, but it's also nice sometimes when you get to think out loud about these things. Like a lot of times they're, at the back of your mind, but when someone asks you, like, yeah, this is what I've been thinking about. So thank you for the opportunity. It
was nice. It was like very inspiring, always like thinking about being inspired and just like, because sometimes I get a little bit frustrated and I'm like, okay, how can maybe I ask someone this question in order to just, relieve me of my own frustration?
That's smart.
But
nice way to do it. Yeah.
So yeah, you did that. Thank you. Hopefully, like, we'll also relieve someone else's frustrations from somewhere, wherever they'll be sitting when we share this. So for now, we're gonna sign off. You wanna sign off?
Okay. You have to come visit. Come visit soon.
Definitely. I will probably even visit before you cut the ribbon.
Yes.
I'll go look for the color of the ribbon.
I love it. Yes, the scissors.
Cool, babes. Thanks so much.
Perfect. Thanks, Zippo.
Have a good one. All the best. Ciao.
Bye.